Greetings, Internet. I'm Dario, and with me here today is the specialized Levo R. So, the Levo 4 came out about a year ago. That's the mid-travel, do-it-all, all-mountain e-bike. Levo R takes very similar ingredients and applies them to a completely different package. There are a lot of details to talk about with this bike, so I'm going to try to approach them in a way that makes the most sense. But first and foremost, what does the R stand for? The R stands for rally, and that is kind of the result of the marketing effort on this bike. They wanted to equate this more to a rally car as opposed to like a truck, which is the Levo 4. And though I want to be annoyed by that, it is a pretty apt comparison. I haven't myself driven a rally car, but from what I gather, they're pretty fast, they're pretty agile, they're reactive. This also has those adjectives. The Levo R is a full power bike, though it is shorter travel and lighter weight than the Levo 4. So best to think of it not as like a full power XC bike, but as a full power trail bike, I think, though it does resemble the Epic. I wouldn't go down that rabbit hole too much. It's different in ways that I will get into in the ride impressions. But first and foremost, I should talk about the e-bike stuff because this is an e-bike. Obviously, it uses Specialized's own motor and battery system. There are many options around that, let's say, ecosystem of parts, those being 2 motors and 3 different batteries. So the 2 motors, you've got the top tier, big baller S-Works motor. That's what's on this bike. That features higher torque and wattage output than the 3.1 motor, which is cheaper, a little bit heavier, and slightly lower output. The S-Works has 850 watts of power and 111 newton meters of torque, and the 3.1 has 810 watts of power and 105 newton meters of torque. So slightly different, but both higher than the kind of previous firmware on the bikes, so you'll experience a lot more power at the wheel. And I would say that despite higher power, the experience of riding the Levo motor system is still very intuitive and similar to older generations of bikes. So just know that it's not like a drastically different thing despite the higher power output. Speaking to the batteries, all the stock builds come with an 840 watt hour battery, very big, pretty chunky as you can see, but removable, because you can run a 600 watt hour battery in here. If you want a lighter weight, if you don't need all the range, you can pare it down a little bit and even have more space in the frame. You can't see it, but on the other side here, there is a hatch that allows you to open the bike up really easily, pop a different battery in, even put a jacket and some snacks in there. This bike also is compatible with a 250 watt hour range extender, which is essentially like mounts to the water bottle cage and adds a little bit more juice if you need even more range. The heads-up unit is the same as on the Levo 4, nice little Apple Watch looking thing, and it is connected to their own little remote. It's not Bluetooth, but it wires in pretty cleanly, and that allows you to change every single setting that you want to on the bike. There's also an app if you would rather that experience, but either way, it works pretty well. Specialized is also introducing some new ride modes with this bike, and I don't want to get into the weeds on those too much, but suffice to say, there's a new thing called Microtune. I really like it. It allows you to change exactly how much the motor matches your wattage output. So if you want to like really stretch battery life and match your own output 1-to-1, you can go into, it's called 0 out of 100 mode, really has a ring to it. But basically that's like if I'm pedaling 250 watts, the motor is putting out 250 watts, and it just matches you all the way up to its peak output. So when you're sprinting, the bike is also sprinting. It feels really cool. It's like perfect match for human to machine in an interesting way. And you get a lot of battery life out of it. Now, this is a bicycle, so let's talk about some bicycle things. It's got 130 millimeters of rear wheel travel and a 140 millimeter fork. You can run it with a 150 fork if you want to, but none of the builds come with one. Has full 29-inch wheels, and that is the only option, but it does have some flip chips to change geometry. In the low mode, which is, I believe, how the bike will be shipping, It has a 65-degree head angle and a 77-degree seat tube angle. So steep enough seat angle for the like mixed uppy downy terrain that you'll probably be riding this on. And the 65 head angle feels to me slack enough to ride most anything and has a nice handling characteristic to it on flatter terrain. Like just about any Specialized at this point, it has a headset adjustment feature, so you can change it by plus or minus 1 degree, which is a pretty big change, but I'm sure some people will want to play with that and alter the characteristics of how the bike rides. There's also the high-low flip chip at the shock and the plus-minus chainstay flip chip out back. The chainstays are the same length across the entire 6-size range. Those are either 441 or 447, depending on where you set it. And then the reach figures scale from 400 millimeters all the way up to 530 in the size 6. I'm riding an S5, which is the equivalent to an extra large, and the reach is about 500 millimeters, plus or minus. The stack heights also scale pretty nicely, going from around 602 millimeters up to almost 670 in the biggest size. So you'll find that the front end of the bike does scale well as you climb up in the size range. Not too many other geo figures to touch on. I would say that generally, like, it may seem like an XC bike in terms of the visual appearance, except for the fatness of the down tube, and the fact that I think people are going to expect that this rides like the Epic. The Epic is a very capable XC bike, but this is significantly more of a trail bike than that. So that 10 mil jump in travel out back makes a pretty big difference. And a big part of that is the Genie shock. So same as on the stump jumper, same as on the Levo. This bike is using a Genie shock, though in a shorter length and stroke. It's a 190 by 45 shock, but it has the same technology where at 70% of travel, it kind of ramps up and keeps you from bottoming out. It also has the same shock tune as the stump jumper, so very light, but I'd say predictable in a way that is really fun on a bike of this travel bracket. In a way, I think this bike makes more sense to me than the Levo 4, but I'll talk about that more in the ride impressions. Touching briefly on the weight of this thing, it changes a lot per build kit, obviously, but this is an S5 S-Works build that I'm riding, and without pedals, this thing weighs 47.5 pounds or 22.5 kilo. So in the full power e-bike world, pretty damn light, but it does have a very light build kit, especially for an e-bike. It comes with light tires, light wheels, a one-piece cockpit. They're definitely doing a lot to save weight on this thing, but even the cheaper build kits aren't exorbitantly heavy. And they've tried to pare things down. Part of the weight savings on this is the fact that it's a unique frame. It looks very similar to the Levo 4, but it is a completely different chassis. So that's how they achieve different geometry, obviously, but it's worth noting that this isn't just a Levo 4 with different links and different build kit. It is a different frame. Speaking of the ride impressions, I think I might as well just jump into that. I'll be damned if I thought this thing was going to be dumb, but it's not dumb. It's pretty fun. I don't understand this bike on paper. It is weird to think about taking the Levo 4, which was, it's not the most capable e-bike relative to other big long travel full power things, and then paring it back even further. But what they've achieved with this is a bike that's uniquely fun on the majority of trails that people ride. And I think that one needs to be honest with themselves when they're thinking about the bike they buy, but this kind of caters to those who are the most honest, where you're I want to go fast, corner nicely, and pop off fun little stuff and have a really nice time doing all that. This is a sweet bike for just ripping laps on backyard trails, whatever the local trail system might be. I wouldn't say it's uber capable. Shouldn't be surprising. It has a 36 SL that's not even a full fat Trailfork, but they've done this is, I'm like hesitant to say it, but I think this is greater than the sum of its parts insofar as like you look at each component spec and it seems like kind of wimpy and weird, but then it rides really well. So suffice to say, I've been kind of surprised by the Levo R. You know, if you watch back like our field test from 2025, I didn't love the Levo 4. I don't think that that bike is as good as it could be. And I think that this is almost like a more solved thing than that longer travel version. You know, the Genie on a short travel platform feels really good. The geo of the bike feels pretty well sorted. It's just fun. You know, it's still a fairly heavy e-bike, but because of the reactivity and liveliness of the suspension, you can place it more easily on trail than you'd expect, and it has a just kind of like zippy quality to it that I've really enjoyed. Getting into like the climbing and the descending in specific, I think, you know, it's an e-bike. It climbs well. That's no surprise. Specialized's motor system is really nice. I personally love the way that it matches power, and all the new controls give you even more fidelity in that. It is a kind of low front end, but not extreme. It's like puts you in a racier position than a Levo 4 would of the same size. I'm gonna just keep comparing the two because it's like same family, but it is more of a like low and speedy feeling bike. And then that equates on the descents as well. Like you feel like you're locked in on this thing as opposed to like being very upright and chilled. You're more like racy, elbows up, like kind of attacking corners. And for the like cutty, less extreme riding you're probably going to be doing on a bike like this, that makes sense to me. I think it encourages kind of a proactive riding style as opposed to one that's like a little more reared back and defensive. So it's fun. Like it all blends together into a package that I think makes for a really interesting and exciting time on trail. There is one kind of sore spot on this, and that's how much it costs. This is an S-Works bike. Those are never cheap, but boy, oh boy, is this thing $16,000. The cheapest build of the Levo R currently is $9,000. They all have carbon frames. They all have the nice motor, the big battery, a good build kit. Like, they're not scrimping anywhere really, but $9,000 is the cheapest. About $10,500 for the middle range one, and then the S-Works bike is almost $16,000. So expensive, but cool. And you know, some people like it when we talk about price. Some people don't. That's for you to choose. I have all of the build specs in my article on the website, so please head there for all that. I will have further ride impressions down the line as I do a full-fledged review on this thing, but until then, you know, head to the website, see what's going on there. Sorry, there's a little spider crawling on it. I've been Dario, this is Pinkbike, and I'll see you soon. Farewell.